Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about my sock saga. I did get a pair of socks made out of that wool that I talked about in my last episode. This is all natural, no dyes in it, all organic, and it had a mate that I bought with it at the same time. This actually, I'll show you the label. These sheep are raised in South Wales, and this is a sock yarn, and this happened to be the Greyface Dartmoor. That's this yarn here, and this particular dark yarn actually is the Hebridean sheep, and this is 100% sock yarn. I was suspicious at the time that I bought this skein, and in that it had only 219 yards. Excuse me. Most sock yarn is about 400 yards. So I thought, that's not, one ball is not going to be enough. So therefore I had two. My goal was I was going to knit a pair of socks with both of these, making them striped. Well, when I tried to combine this with this using the same needle 2.25, you could read the newspaper through what I knitted on the white, and it just needed a much finer, much smaller gauge needle. And so I tried several things. This was too heavy, and so same yardage, same weight, but it's all in the twist of the yarn. Note to self: when you're buying some of these really handmade small batch yarns, you really want to look at them carefully. And I knew I was taking that risk, so I was okay. I wanted to make a short top sock. Well, I got a short top sock, and they fit. It was good practice for me. It's been about 1.5 years since I made a pair of socks, and so it was a good refresher. And I actually would use that as a suggestion if you've never knitted socks before, or if it's been a while, and if you've never been successful in getting a pair of socks to fit you. My suggestion is go to one of the big box stores and get yourself a pair of sock yarn. But you don't need to go out and buy something like this that could be in the $25 to $30 range for a ball. That's not necessary unless you're really experienced and knit socks all the time. That's altogether different. But if you're wanting to get a refresher on knitting socks, the technique, and if you're wanting to make sure your sock is going to fit when you're done, practice on some sock yarn. You want to make sure it's sock yarn, but make sure that you're not, going to use some really expensive yarn to practice on. That part's not necessary. So I did learn a lot in going through this process again. These do fit me, and it was great because I do from the toe up, and I could just try them on as I went. But along with that, I came across this now about 1.5 years ago, this book by Kat Broidhi. I guess it's Bordhi. She has been a stocking knitter for many, 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 many years, has done lots of research, has knitted many socks. And after she came out with this book, she came out with the next one that was life-changing for me in making what she calls the sweet tomato heel. And I'll tell you about that heel in just a second. But I've learned so much from her, and this book is valuable because here in the back section of this book, she has all these very terrifying graphs, and you look at it and you think, oh my goodness, what is she even talking about? But she has a form in here with all kinds of questions about your foot and measurements, where to measure and how to measure. I've read this book from cover to cover, and it was great. I'm so glad I did. Lots of patterns in here with all kinds of socks, all kinds of heels. It was her following book that had the sweet tomato heel that I'm going to talk more about. But this book is very, very valuable to understand your foot, how to increase if you've got a wide toe and need a wide toe box in a sock. All kinds of good ideas. I'll get back to talking about the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother in stitches. That was a whole new concept for me. But I want to get back to these socks right here and my gauge, because this dark brown yarn is still a different gauge than traditional sock yarn. This needle for this yarn here will be probably a 2.5. I ended up being a 2.25 and did not come out with the gauge that the pattern was calling for, so I had to improvise, and it worked. You know, knitting is math. I've said it before, your stitches times however many inches around or long something is, that's math that you're going to use in knitting a lot. So because I knew the inches around, because I'd filled out her wonderful little form in this little book, I knew how many inches around I needed to be here at the high instep part of my foot before going on to the heel. And I knew how many stitches I need here at the toe as soon as I got past where my toe was. So that this was good experience for me to come back and make a pair of socks. These are my little prototype, even though I have these that I made about a year and a half ago. It was just a good refresher course. I won't be making more wool socks. I know that. Not all wool like this. Although I will be curious as to the wearability of these. These may last forever. They actually may last a lot longer than these. These feel a lot nicer, I just have to say. That cashmere made all the difference in the world. So I am curious to see how long they will last. But I want to talk real quick about what is called the sweet tomato heel. Often in socks you'll see what they call a gusset, and it has some real definite lines in it that you can see where the heel was set in. Well, this is done in wedges, and there is no gaping holes from tension, and they're short rows. So you knit a few stitches over and then you turn around and come back around, and you keep doing that and building the wedge, and it just makes a wonderful even heel, and they fit beautifully. So sweet tomato heel is a winner in my book. The pattern that I used came out of her book, but I changed it up, of course. She had this lace pattern that's down the front here. She had it all the way around the sock, and it actually came down the foot further. Well, I don't like a lot of pattern because it adds a little bulk to my socks. I don't like it when it's down in my shoe. So I just made the lace part right down the very front, and I put my own rib cuff on it. Because I wanted a sock that was going to stay up and not slide down. So, you know, those are just some changes that are easy to do once you make a pair of socks. You can change them up, make all kinds of patterns and designs. If it's a sock you're going to be wearing around the house a lot and you want it to look really pretty, you can make all kinds of lace patterns. Nowadays, they have so many beautiful hand-dyed yarns that make their own pattern and design, and so it's kind of fun to just let that be part of your pattern. I have a pair of socks started on this yarn right here that has, actually, I don't know if you can see it, but it has some little flecks in it, and it's very soft. It's merino. It's a lovely yarn, and I didn't get my mic put on, so excuse me here a minute because I need to get it untangled from my yarn, and I might as well just go ahead and put it on. I don't get too fancy, as you can tell. So So this new yarn that I'm already started a pair of socks in, it is called, it's by Lamb Good Fibers, and this is called Those Blue Eyes. I love the names that people come up for with their yarn, but it's kind of a fun yarn. It's merino wool, and it has a little bit of 15% of a nylon in it, and that's going to be just enough to give it stability. It's not going to stretch out. I will say the sock yarn that I've gotten from the big box stores, the price was right, but they do not hold their shape for very long. But they are good to make a sample sock out of. But once you get your sock skills developed, you're going to want to go to one of these types of yarns that's going to hold its shape and last you a long time. So how I do my, I use one ball of yarn and I make 2 socks at the same time. Now I've got a tangled mess here because I grabbed it from the living room and walked it in here, and it looks like it's tangled up, but it really isn't, trust me. So here's one sock starting at the toe, and here's the other one. And so I knit a ways on one, and I go over and I do the same thing on this. So at the end, you have both socks done at the same time. And I sometimes don't just do it row for row, but I'll do a section, maybe up to where the increases stop, and then I'll go and do the other sock up to the same place. And I have them classified as, this is sock A, and I know that because it's got 2 little markers on it. Sock B only has 1. So I can always remember which sock is the one I just got through working on, and I make some little notes along the way to keep myself straight. And this is a great way. I love doing toe up socks, and but I have done them top down, but toe up you can try them on the way up the foot. And before I turn a heel, that's what it's called when you do the heel, knitting the heel. When I do the heel, I would have both socks in the same place. These are my wonderful little flip needles by Addie that have the little short cable. So this is super easy to knit with, and they just bend in the hands so nice, and actually much easier to work with than the straight double pointed needles. These are double pointed needles, but they have that little cable in the center. I think I talked about that on the last episode. So that's where I'm at with my socks. I hope to have a lot more done by the next episode. Maybe, we'll see, I'll knit up to the heel and stop and do another video at that point, so you can kind of get the idea of the sweet tomato heel. But those of you that have ever knitted a sock, you will understand. I think that's the piece that most people think, oh, I've just heard horror stories about doing a heel, so therefore I think maybe socks would be beyond my capability. Well, that's not true. They are within anybody's capability. And the thing that's made it super easy is this wonderful sweet tomato heel, and this sock fits so nice on my foot, and there's no bulk, there's no little folds in the yarn. It just fits really nice to the foot. It's the worst thing in the world is put on a sock and you've got too much toe, it doesn't all fit in the shoe right, and you got too much fabric down there, or it's the heel is up here by the ankle where you don't want the heel to be. That's what I love about making socks. You can absolutely fit your foot perfectly, and you can take measurements to other people and you can knit perfect socks for them too. So socks are fun. I think the thing about socks that I enjoy is that they're short projects. You know, you're not knitting on it like a sweater. You could be knitting on the same thing for several months, and a lot more expensive to knit a sweater. Socks are a great gift, and we have hardwood floors, so once the weather begins to cool down a little bit even, I will have socks on my feet in the evening time, and so a lot of socks get worn by me. So hope maybe I encouraged you not to be afraid of socks. Get in and try. If you have any questions, text me, you know, ask the question on our channel, and if I don't have the answer, I'll either make it up or I'll find one for you. And but I would really encourage you, try socks, and you might be really surprised. They could be a little addicting maybe. And socks are fun to have, and nowadays we can wear all kinds of colors with anything, and so the sky's the limit. And if you haven't been into a yarn store lately, I think the sock yarn section is probably sometimes the biggest section. Lots of people are knitting socks. There's some fabulous sock yarns out there with all different kinds of dye techniques. And some of them make their own self-striping. Some of them kind of pool the colors, so there'll be just a blotch of color in one spot. And how they do that, I don't know. Beyond me. I've never gotten into dyeing. But some fun sock yarn. So try your hand at something new. Learn how to make socks. Hope you have a good day, and I'm going to probably go knit on my socks this evening. Bye now. Okay, I'm going to tack on to the end of this video here and give you a quick little update as to where I am with my new socks. Earlier in the video you saw that I just had the toes started. I'm doing both of these socks pretty much at the same time. I'm actually doing a section at a time on each toe. I'm not doing one round and then come over here and do one round here. So I have both socks worked up to where this marker is right here. That's the end of my increases, and now I'm working straight up the foot about midway. And so I love these little flexi flips, like I said, by Addie. They're just so nice in the hand, because if this was a straight needle, this would be sticking out here like this, but instead it folds with my hand, and it just is so comfortable to work with and makes knitting so easy. And the consistency of the stitches, it's very easy to keep a very consistent gauge. So that's how they work. I've got 3 of them with stitches on, 3 needles, and then the one needle here, the 4th one that I'm actually using to knit with. Now you can just have 2 needles like this with all your stitches on 2 needles, and you would use a 3rd needle to knit with. And I've done it, made socks completely just on 2 needles like this, with a 3rd one as the knitting needle. But I actually like this method better, putting the stitches on 3 needles and then using 1 needle to actually knit with. The reason why is I think it gives less tension here where you turn around the edge of your sock. I think this has a little more tension, and if you're not real careful, you can get a ladder. I don't have so much of an issue with a ladder when I've got this many stitches on 3 needles. So that is just where I'm at. I feel like it's going smoothly. I think my toes turned out nicely. When I put this on my foot, it fits nicely. And so at this point in time, I'm pretty pleased, and these feel real nice to the feel. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is I had mentioned in my earlier part of this video about a mother. Well, actually, we'll start out with a daughter, a mother, and a grandmother. And I have to show you first this book by Kat Broidhey, I believe is how she pronounces her name. This is the book that I was raving about, and I refer back to it so many times. Let's see if we can get in the camera this little picture right here. The top stitch is called the daughter. The next stitch down, the red one, is called the mother. And then the third stitch down, which is blue, is called the grandmother. And Kat has such a fun way of explaining things that you remember. And she talks about using this for an increase. And I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. Often we do an increase by knitting in the front and the back of one stitch. And I really don't care for that very well because it's easy to get a gape, a little hole in your knitting, and it's also feels like there's kind of a little bump there. This increase here that I'm going to explain to you that she talks about, to me, is perfect. And a stitch has two sides that come up and kind of make a heart shape. These sides, I'm going to raise this book up here to get a better picture here if I can find where we are on screen. Okay, that's better. So looking at the red stitch, these are called legs. The side of the stitch is called a leg. So to do an increase, if you want to make an increase right here, you would actually pick up the leg of the mother and knit into it, and then knit the daughter, and now you've made an extra stitch. So you are not knitting in the front and the back of a stitch. You're actually knitting into the stitch below. Here, let's try it on this here and see if I can get enough of the yarn out of the way so you actually can see what I'm talking about. This is so slick, and what I was so excited about when I learned this, I use this increase in sweater making, in so many things. So here we are. Here's the daughter right here on the needle, if that you can see that, this last stitch right here. The live stitch that's on the needle is the daughter. The stitch right under it is the mother. And this is the leg of the mother. And so what you do is you lift that leg up. She talks about it like riding a horse. I think that's so funny. So now the mother's leg is on the needle, and we're going to knit into that. There's our increase, and then we come back and knit the daughter. And that is such a smooth increase. There is no lump in your yarn. I guarantee you, if you were to go through here and look at my knitting, you would be hard pressed to find where my increases are. And in socks, it's terrific because you're not getting any unevenness in the knitting. So that daughter, mother, and she just calls the grandmother out. She actually uses the grandmother in one of her increases, but I just work with the daughter and the mother for increase. So I just encourage you, if you've never gone online, look up on YouTube, Kat's, just type in her name on YouTube, and she has many, many videos on there. I wouldn't even attempt to really try to do a video that shows what she does. They're professional done. Go look at them. She is an excellent teacher, and there's many other tricks that she will teach you about knitting socks. The techniques apply to other kind of knitting. So I'm very, very impressed with her. And the other book you're going to look for by her is the one called Cat's Sweet Tomato Heel. And she does a padded heel. She does a plain heel. She shows you how to do a heel if you're working with round needle or knitting in the round, or with double pointed needles, and if you're doing the magic loop. So whatever your preference is, she's got videos on there to help you. But her techniques are terrific. So I encourage you to look up her videos on YouTube. I don't get paid for promoting her, but I have just learned so much from her techniques that, like I say, that apply to so many other things that I've knitted. So very, very invaluable. And I just wanted to show you where I was. Next recording, I hope to be working on the heel and give you some bird's eye view on how that comes together. But you can go to her videos and see them. And I just encourage you to do that. So there you go. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.